She flew into the clouds chasing history and vanished into the silence of time. Amelia Earhart, the daring pilot who inspired a generation, disappeared in 1937 without a trace. For decades, her fate has been a mystery wrapped in fragments, scattered radio signals, blurred photographs, and bones on forgotten islands. Why did her final transmission sound so calm? How did a broken compass lead to a vanished legacy? And what did a classified U.S. military file reveal years later? Before we continue, if you believe legends never truly vanish, comment "Still Searching" below. It helps keep her story alive. Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas. From a young age, she wasn't like the other girls. While others played with dolls, she built small ramps to launch her homemade wooden roller coaster off the roof of her grandparents' shed. Her spark for adventure wasn't just a phase. It was who she was. She saw her first airplane at age 10, but wasn't impressed. It looked more like a rusty toy than a machine that would change her life. That moment didn't spark her destiny. Not yet. It wasn't until World War I, when she served as a nurse's aide in Canada, that she watched injured pilots return from combat. Their stories burned into her soul. Years later, she finally took her first flying lesson in 1921. She was 23. Halfway through her first flight, she made a silent vow. Would the world be ready for what came next? In just 6 months after her first flying lesson, Amelia bought her own plane, a bright yellow Kinner Airster she lovingly named the Canary. It wasn't fast or sleek, but it gave her something more important: freedom. She broke her first record in 1922 by flying at 14,000 feet, higher than any woman before her. And from there, the sky wasn't the limit. It was just the beginning. In 1928, she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, though she rode as a passenger with male pilots. The world cheered, but Amelia was unsatisfied. "I was just baggage," she famously said, "like a sack of potatoes." That would not be her legacy. By 1932, she crossed the Atlantic solo, becoming a global icon. Her calm courage inspired women and men alike. But as she stood atop her fame, whispers began about her next, most dangerous mission. And one question quietly followed her: what would it cost to make history? In 1937, at age 39, Amelia Earhart announced her boldest challenge yet, to fly around the world at the equator. It was a 29,000-mile journey that no one, man or woman, had ever completed. She would not do it alone. Her navigator, Fred Noonan, was chosen for his sharp skills and long-distance expertise. They started strong. In May 1937, the pair flew from California to South America, across Africa, then to India and Southeast Asia. By June, they had covered 22,000 miles. Only the Pacific remained. Their next stop, tiny Howland Island, a speck in the vast Pacific. On July 2, 1937, they took off from Lae, New Guinea. Amelia's final recorded words came through static. "We are on the line 157-337. We are running north and south." Then, nothing. Radio silence, no distress call, no wreckage, no farewell. The Pacific swallowed everything. But why? And how could two seasoned aviators disappear with no trace? The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca waited off the coast of Howland Island, ready to guide Amelia in with radio signals. But that morning, communication was garbled and confusing. The ship could hear her voice, but she couldn't hear theirs. She sounded calm, not panicked, but clearly lost. Her fuel supply was low. She mentioned flying on line 157-337, a navigational reference, but failed to specify whether she was north or south of Howland. That line was hundreds of miles long, not a pinpoint location. The Itasca sent up smoke signals. No plane was seen. A massive search followed, 66 aircraft, 9 ships, and over 250,000 square miles of open ocean combed. Nothing was found, not a wing, not a scrap of fabric, not even a signal from her emergency radio, and in the shadow of that silence, a different voice started to whisper. Was Amelia really lost, or deliberately hidden? Then came the calls. In the hours and days after her disappearance, radio operators across the Pacific and even in the U.S. reported picking up strange messages. They heard static-filled transmissions from a woman identifying herself as Amelia, claiming to be injured, stranded, and in need of help. One voice was heard saying, "We are on a reef. We must be on a reef." Some reports described hearing a second voice, possibly Noonan, moaning in pain or delirium. A 15-year-old girl in Florida claimed she picked up a broadcast with the words, "Can you read me? This is Amelia Earhart." The U.S. Navy dismissed most of them. They said the plane's batteries would have died within hours, and besides, how could a signal reach thousands of miles? But decades later, historians uncovered logs that suggested these calls weren't just imagination. Many were recorded and documented, so where were they calling from? And why didn't anyone answer in time? In the 1940s, British colonists arrived on a remote, uninhabited island called Nikumaroro, part of the Phoenix Islands. It was flat, desolate, and surrounded by coral reefs. There they found something strange: pieces of a woman's shoe, fragments of aircraft metal, a bottle of freckle cream, a brand Amelia was known to use. Then, in 1940, a partial human skeleton was discovered, along with a box that may have once held navigation tools. The remains were sent to Fiji for analysis. The British doctor ruled them male, and the bones were lost. For years, the island theory sat ignored, but modern forensic scientists reanalyzed the old data. Using measurements from Amelia's clothing and known medical records, they concluded the remains were 99% likely to be hers. So why wasn't this headline news, and why were key pieces of evidence seemingly brushed aside for decades? In 2017, a blurry photograph emerged from the U.S. National Archives. Taken in 1937 in the Marshall Islands, it showed a woman seated on a dock, her back to the camera, short hair, slouched posture, next to a man who looked strikingly like Fred Noonan. In the water, a Japanese transport ship towed a large object, resembling a plane fuselage. Could this be proof that Amelia survived? Some experts believe the photo had been mislabeled and was taken years after her disappearance. Others said it was the missing link, evidence she had been captured by the Japanese and taken to Saipan or another military base. Public interest exploded. News outlets ran the story as a possible breakthrough. But days later, the photo was allegedly debunked. Still, not everyone was convinced. If it wasn't Amelia, why did it match her so perfectly? And why was it buried in archives for 80 years? A darker theory gained traction over the years, one with Cold War shadows and government secrecy. Some believe Amelia Earhart wasn't just flying for glory. She may have been working secretly for the U.S. government, capturing aerial photos of Japanese military positions in the Pacific on her round-the-world flight. According to this theory, she was instructed to veer off course and gather intelligence, all under the cover of her celebrity. But something went wrong. She was discovered, captured, and quietly disposed of. Declassified files from World War II showed U.S. intelligence tracking sightings of a Caucasian woman prisoner on Saipan, described as tall, athletic, and fitting Amelia's profile. Locals claimed a woman was buried in an unmarked grave behind a jail. No body was found, no records were official, but too many whispers began to sound alike. Was this just coincidence, or the remnants of a cover-up too deep to expose? Fred Noonan, Amelia's navigator, often fades into the background of this mystery, but his role was anything but minor. A seasoned seaman and skilled aerial navigator, Noonan had crossed the Pacific before, but this flight toward Howland Island was among the most difficult ever charted. There were rumors before takeoff. Noonan had been drinking, his health declining. Some sources suggested tension between him and Amelia, possibly worsened by the stress of the flight. But was he really a liability, or just an easy scapegoat? What is rarely mentioned is that Noonan brought along coded maps, ones never recovered after the disappearance. And if Amelia's mission had a secret objective, Noonan likely knew. So was he collateral damage, or a crucial part of something larger? And if they landed somewhere alive, how long did Fred survive? Beyond the radio calls, other strange signs surfaced. In the weeks after Amelia vanished, coastal stations in Australia and Hawaii picked up shortwave bursts at odd intervals. Nothing conclusive, just fragments. Then came physical objects, stories of a tattered map washing ashore, or a bracelet identical to one Amelia wore found in a market thousands of miles away. Some of these claims were hoaxes, but not all. In one case, a U.S. sailor stationed in the Pacific claimed his unit intercepted a coded message referring to AE and VIP transport secured. The report was buried. Another chilling clue? A diary entry from a Navy officer in 1938. They know where she is. They just can't say. But if someone knew, why stay silent? What could possibly be at stake even years later? Back on Nikumaroro, researchers returned decades later. The island had become part of a protected marine zone, quiet, undisturbed, and still full of secrets. In the undergrowth near the reef, scientists uncovered more clues: remnants of a campfire, fish bones cut with tools, the remains of a compact mirror, and broken glass likely from makeup bottles. This wasn't just shipwreck debris, this was a survival site. One of the most haunting discoveries was a piece of aircraft aluminum, its rivet pattern matching Lockheed Electra models. Nearby, a zipper pull, a woman's compact, and a U.S. Navy knife. But there were no bodies, no definitive proof. Just a story written in fragments. And silence. So did Amelia live for days, or even weeks, stranded on this remote coral spit? And if she did, why didn't help arrive? Amelia wasn't just a celebrity. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. Her younger sister, Amelia Earhart Morrissey, never believed Amelia died in the crash. For decades, Muriel pushed for answers, writing letters, speaking at events, and challenging the official narrative. Amelia wouldn't give up, she said, and I won't give up for her. She collected testimonies from people who swore they saw Amelia alive, not just in the Pacific, but in Asian prison camps. Some claimed to have met a woman called Irene in New Jersey, who resembled Earhart and avoided the press. Muriel dismissed the wilder theories, but held firm that something had been hidden, not for drama, but to protect something or someone. But if Amelia had lived, why didn't she return? Was she unable or unwilling? A chilling twist came from Fiji in the early 2000s. A retired government official revealed that human bones, matching the ones found on Nikumaroro decades earlier, had been quietly stored in a hospital basement and later discarded. They were never DNA tested. Gone, just like that. But photographs and measurements taken in 1940 had survived. When modern forensic anthropologists analyzed the data using 3D modeling and advanced software, they found the bones were more similar to Earhart than 99% of the population. Still, the findings weren't universally accepted. Critics said the sample size was too small. Supporters said the margin of similarity was too large to ignore. What's most troubling, though, is this. Why were the bones not preserved? Why was a potentially historic discovery allowed to vanish without a trace? And who, if anyone, made that decision? One of the most persistent alternative theories places Amelia not in the ocean, but in a military prison. According to multiple post-war reports, Both Earhart and Noonan were captured by Japanese forces and taken to the island of Saipan in the Mariana Islands. Witnesses, including former U.S. Marines and island locals, later claimed they saw a Caucasian woman in a cell. Descriptions matched Amelia. Some even reported she was interrogated as a suspected spy. The U.S. government denied any involvement, but classified documents surfaced in the 1960s, censored and vague, suggesting someone of significance had indeed been held in Saipan. Why would these testimonies emerge across different times from unrelated sources? And why did multiple military men say they were ordered to keep quiet, under threat? If Amelia died on Saipan, was she executed? And who knew the truth all along? In 2017, a documentary stunned viewers with what looked like photographic evidence. A photo from a Japanese archive showed a woman, short-haired, Caucasian, sitting on a Saipan dock beside a man who looked like Fred Noonan. In the background, a ship towed something that resembled the Lockheed Electra. Could it really be Amelia? The photo, dated before her disappearance, sparked immediate controversy. Skeptics questioned the image's origin, and later, a Japanese blogger claimed the photo was from a travel book published 2 years before her disappearance. But the story didn't die there. Forensic analysts said the body proportions of the seated woman closely matched Amelia's. The man's receding hairline and posture resembled Noonan's, and most curiously, the figure looked back at the camera, as if caught mid-escape. Was this photo real, or an elaborate plant to fuel one theory while covering up another? As whispers about Amelia's survival grew, so did theories about her post-disappearance life. One idea spread online and through conspiracy circles. Amelia Earhart returned under a new name. A woman named Irene Bolam, a New Jersey banker, was accused of being Earhart in hiding. Photos were compared, body analysis conducted, even voice samples dissected. Bolam denied everything. She sued a publisher and issued a public statement. "I am not Amelia Earhart." The case was dropped. But suspicions lingered. The FBI quietly investigated. Some handwriting experts said signatures matched. Others said no. So why did Irene Bolam have documentation gaps before 1940? Why did she avoid press attention for decades? And why did a woman with no flying history show deep aviation knowledge in casual conversation? If Amelia did assume a new identity, what was she escaping from? Or, more chillingly, who? Behind many of the most compelling theories lies a single suggestion. Amelia's round-the-world flight was more than just a record-breaking journey. Declassified memos from the 1990s revealed whispers of a possible intelligence mission. Some claimed she was asked to photograph Japanese military installations from above under the cover of civilian flight. At the time, tensions between Japan and the U.S. were rising. The Pacific was a chessboard. And Amelia? A well-known fearless pilot with global appeal. Perfect cover. But if the mission failed, or she was caught, plausible deniability would be essential. Did the U.S. government know more than they admitted? What was Amelia sacrificed to avoid an international incident? And if she was spying, did she know what she had signed up for? Or was she used? Decades passed, but the mystery only deepened. In 2003, a Freedom of Information Act request uncovered something strange. Dozens of pages in Amelia's file were blacked out, entire paragraphs missing from what should have been basic aviation reports. Why redact the history of a missing pilot? Some of the documents referenced unusual transmission patterns and covert asset risk. Others were missing entirely, with only vague file numbers left behind. Even now, researchers trying to trace Amelia's last hours often hit the same dead end. Records unavailable. So what are they protecting? Why would a routine disappearance from 1937 still carry secrecy today? And could the final clue still sit in a locked drawer somewhere, waiting for the right person to ask the right question? In 1940, on Nikumaroro Island, a group of British colonists made a discovery: a human skull, part of a skeleton, a woman's shoe, and a small box believed to once hold a sextant. A doctor on the island examined the bones and concluded they belonged to a short, stocky male. The case was quietly closed, but in 1998, researchers re-examined the long-lost records. They suggested the doctor's conclusion was flawed. The measurements actually aligned with a woman about Amelia's height. In 2018, a forensic study by Dr. Richard Jantz went further, using modern computing to compare Earhart's known body dimensions to the notes. His conclusion? The bones are more likely to be Amelia Earhart than 99% of the general population. But the bones themselves? They've vanished. Why would such critical evidence disappear? And more importantly, who had access to them? And why did they go missing again? In addition to the bones, other curious items were found on Nikumaroro over the years. Parts of a woman's compact, a zipper pull, fragments of a mirror, and a bottle of freckle cream, a brand Earhart was known to use. The freckle cream caught particular attention. Amelia had always been self-conscious about her freckles and never left without it. And yet, none of the items were officially linked to her. Skeptics argue these could have belonged to anyone. But archaeologists point to the isolation of Nikumaroro. No known women had been stationed there before or after. So how could such specifically feminine items arrive there? And why would a sextant box used for aerial navigation be present? All signs point to a downed flyer. But why no trace of the plane? Did it sink immediately? Or did someone remove it? And if Amelia was ever here, did she die waiting for help that never came? Days after Amelia's final radio call, amateur radio operators across the Pacific began picking up strange transmissions. Some reported a woman's voice repeating phrases like, "We are on a reef," and "the water is rising." One operator in Texas claimed to hear, "This is Amelia Earhart. Help us." Though dismissed by officials at the time, dozens of these reports flooded in from the U.S., Australia, and even Canada. Some were debunked. Others could not be explained. TIGAR, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, analyzed radio propagation conditions and determined that such signals were possible. If Amelia had landed on Nikumaroro and used the plane's battery-powered radio before it was submerged, so were those voices real? And if they were, how close were we to rescuing her before silence fell forever? Since 1988, TIGHAR has led dozens of expeditions to Nikumaroro, collecting data, uncovering artifacts, and diving its surrounding reefs. Each trip added puzzle pieces to the theory that Amelia and Fred crash-landed there and may have survived for days or even weeks. But they've never found the Electra. Underwater drones and sonar have scanned the reef shelf repeatedly. Something always seems just out of reach. Coral growth, deep drop-offs, and sharp terrain have made the search perilous. In 2019, famed explorer Robert Ballard, who found the Titanic, conducted his own search, also with no luck. So where is the plane? Was it washed off the reef before help arrived? Or was the entire Nikumaroro theory wrong? The deeper they searched, the closer the mystery seemed. And the more frustrating one question became, how can one of the most famous women in history just vanish and never be found? In Amelia's final journal entry before the last leg of her flight, she wrote something simple, but strange. "We'll be okay. We always are." It was an optimistic note, likely meant to calm her nerves, or perhaps someone else's. But historians debate its tone. Did she sense something was off? Did Fred Noonan, who had struggled with alcohol, show signs of distress? And was Amelia as confident as the world believed? Some theorists say the stress of the final flight, the long distances, mechanical issues, fatigue, political tension, may have led to human error. Others believe she knew this mission was bigger than what she let on. And in that final note, was she reassuring herself or leaving behind a trace, something for the world to hold on to. Because after that last line and that last flight, there were no more words. Fred Noonan was an expert navigator, having charted routes for Pan American Airways across the Pacific. His knowledge of stars, maps, and long-distance travel was unmatched at the time. But there was another side to Fred, one Amelia's team often kept quiet. He had battled alcoholism, and just weeks before the final flight, he was reportedly seen drunk and disoriented in public. While this alone wouldn't disqualify his skills, it raised concerns. Some speculate his condition may have worsened under pressure. Did a navigational error, just a few miles off course, seal their fate? Others claim Fred was sharp during the final leg, and that mechanical failure, not human error, caused the crash. But if he was impaired, even slightly, did Amelia know it in the cockpit? And what decisions did she make in those last silent moments? The mystery isn't just hers. Fred's silence lingers too. After Amelia vanished, the U.S. Navy launched one of the largest sea and air searches ever attempted at the time. Battleships and planes scoured thousands of miles. But within just 16 days, they called it off. Why so soon? Officials claimed there was no evidence of survival. But critics argue the Navy searched only the most expected areas. Nikumaroro, though close to Amelia's projected path, wasn't thoroughly examined. Some believe the Navy had other priorities: military secrecy, political pressure, or even classified intelligence gathering in the region. It was, after all, a time of rising tension before World War II. So why not push harder? Why not follow the dozens of credible radio reports? Did someone decide it was better not to know what really happened? And if so, what were they trying to avoid uncovering? One of the most debated theories suggests Amelia and Fred didn't crash on a reef, but rather were captured by the Japanese after landing on or near the Marshall Islands. Locals in Saipan have claimed for decades they saw a white woman and a tall man, detained by Japanese forces around 1937. Some even claimed the woman said her name was Amelia. In 2017, a photograph surfaced in the U.S. National Archives. It showed two individuals on a dock, possibly matching Amelia and Fred, with a Japanese ship towing what looks like an airplane. But critics say the photo was taken 2 years before the flight. Others argue the individuals don't resemble the aviators. Still, the theory persists. Could Amelia have survived, only to become a prisoner? And if so, why would every official record deny it ever happened? One of the strangest details in the Japanese theory is what wasn't said. Military ship logs from the time are typically meticulous: times, movements, weather. But several logs from vessels in the region during the days after Earhart vanished are either missing, redacted, or oddly vague. Researchers who've requested access to these documents have often been denied, even decades later. If Amelia's plane had crashed near Japanese territory, the implications were massive. The U.S. could not publicly accuse Japan without risking political fallout. So was the silence strategic? Were the logs altered to hide a diplomatic disaster? And if she truly ended up in Japanese custody, what became of her and Fred? No remains, no burial, just gaps in paper where history should have spoken clearly. In the late 1990s, a woman named Elgin Long, who had researched Amelia's final flight path extensively, received a phone call. It was from a former CIA operative claiming that years earlier, a top-secret file passed across his desk, a document confirming Amelia's capture by Japanese forces. He couldn't provide the file, he wouldn't give his name. But his voice, Long said, sounded like someone who carried the truth for far too long. Elgin didn't know whether to believe him, but she wasn't the only one. Over the years, multiple former military and intelligence figures have come forward anonymously, all hinting at the same chilling idea. Amelia didn't disappear. She was disappeared. But if that's true, it raises one more haunting question. Who made the decision to let her story become a mystery, and why? In 1940, a colonial officer stationed on the remote island of Nikumaroro discovered what appeared to be a human skeleton near the shoreline, along with a woman's shoe, a sextant box, and remnants of a campfire. British authorities shipped the bones to Fiji, where a physician declared they belonged to a male. Case closed for decades. But in 1998, forensic scientists re-examined the original notes and measurements. New analysis concluded the bones could very likely belong to a tall, white female, matching Amelia's build. And yet, the bones themselves, lost. Misplaced somewhere in a dusty archive or destroyed. If those bones were hers, then she may have survived the crash, only to die alone on a deserted island while the world searched in the wrong direction. But if that's true, where's Fred? And what became of the diary pages locals claimed she kept? One haunting theory attempts to explain why no full skeleton has ever been recovered on Nikumaroro, coconut crabs. These massive crustaceans can grow up to 3 feet wide and have been known to drag large objects, even bones, into their burrows. Researchers from TIGHAR conducted experiments using pig carcasses to simulate human remains. Within days, the pigs were dismembered and scattered. Could Amelia have perished under a tree, wounded and alone, and then vanished piece by piece into the jungle? Disturbing, yes, but nature often leaves no dignity for the lost. Some believe this explains the torn, partial items found on the island. A shoe here, a zipper there, fabric bleached by the sun. But others question, why were there no bones from Fred Noonan? And if Amelia survived for days or weeks, why didn't she write something, leave a final message? Or did she, and we never found it? There's a story that never made major headlines, but lingers in the margins of Earhart research. In 1945, a woman living in New Jersey received a letter in her mailbox. There was no return address. Inside was a single photograph showing a woman in tattered clothes standing beside a crashed plane with a handwritten note, "Don't stop looking." The woman thought it was a cruel prank, but when she showed the photo to a friend, they gasped. It looked eerily like Amelia Earhart. The photo was lost, thrown away during a move decades ago. No one knows who sent it or why, but it raises a chilling possibility. Did Amelia try to reach out from wherever she ended up? And if so, was someone trying to silence her even then? Some say the story is nonsense. Others believe it's the final whisper of a woman who refused to be erased. The TIGHAR team, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, has spent over 3 decades researching the Nikumaroro theory. They've led multiple expeditions recovering items like fragments of a mirror, compact, an old zipper pull, parts of a shoe sole, and wiring, possibly from Amelia's Lockheed Electra. Nothing definitively proves the connection, but the pattern is haunting. Each piece almost fits. In 2019, they even used cadaver dogs trained to detect historical human remains. The dogs alerted at a specific tree site. Still, skeptics argue it's not enough. Critics demand hard proof, a serial number, a nameplate, or a body. But TIGAR's Rick Gillespie insists, we have more evidence supporting this theory than any other. So if that's true, why hasn't the world accepted it? And what are we waiting for? A truth already lost to time, or the one nobody wants to face? Just hours after Amelia's final radio call, a Pan Am station in Hawaii logged something strange. A weak, intermittent Morse code signal, faint but insistent. The station's operator believed it came from Amelia's frequency, tapping out SOS followed by 281 North Howland. It was never confirmed. The signal faded. The Navy dismissed it as atmospheric noise, but some radio experts say the signal matched Amelia's transmitter type, and the coordinates line up frighteningly close to Nikumaroro. So why ignore it? Why discard a possible cry for help? The truth may be simple. Officials didn't want to believe she could still be alive, or worse, they feared what they'd find. That final blip in the static may have been her last connection to the outside world. And then, just silence. Was it a signal from a ghost? Or from a woman still waiting to be found? Fred Noonan, Amelia's navigator, was no ordinary crewman. He was a seasoned flight planner, experienced in Pan Am's Pacific routes, calm, precise, and respected. But some theories suggest he harbored doubts about the final leg of their flight. In private letters to colleagues, Fred reportedly questioned whether their navigational equipment would function reliably near Howland Island. The tiny speck of land had no visual landmarks, just ocean all around. Could Fred have miscalculated their position? Or worse, did they fly past Howland while arguing about bearings? A few researchers suggest Fred may have panicked near the end. Others believe he died before Amelia, possibly from injuries or dehydration, after an emergency landing. But here's the eerie part. No trace of Fred Noonan has ever been found. Not a bone, not a tooth, not a button. Did he vanish into the jungle? Or is it possible he died protecting a truth Amelia took to her grave? One detail haunts conspiracy theorists. Why did the U.S. government seem so quick to move on? The search for Amelia lasted only a few weeks. Costly, yes, but abruptly concluded. Navy ships combed thousands of square miles, but after 17 days, they were ordered to stand down. Privately, officials claimed they had done enough. But leaked documents later hinted the U.S. may have intercepted Amelia's radio signals longer than they admitted, and possibly knew she had landed elsewhere. Some believe the military classified parts of the search to conceal secret technologies in the area. Others think they stumbled on something or someone they weren't supposed to. Why seal files? Why redact pages? A woman that famous vanishes without a trace, and the silence becomes deafening. Were they protecting intelligence or hiding the final truth? And if so, what would have happened if the world really knew what they found? In 2017, a photo surfaced in the U.S. National Archives, misfiled in a box unrelated to Earhart's disappearance. It showed a dock in the Marshall Islands. Seated on a bench, a woman with short hair and a man beside her. In the background, a Japanese ship towing a plane. Some experts insisted the woman was Amelia. The man looked like Fred Noonan. The ship? Possibly Japanese Navy. The theory? Amelia crashed near the Marshalls, was captured by the Japanese, and held prisoner. But almost immediately, skeptics jumped in. The photo, they claimed, had been published years before Earhart disappeared. Debunked? Maybe. But others argue the photo was misdated or that similar photos were released to confuse the truth. Could the Japanese theory be a cover-up dismissed too quickly? Or is the real scandal how quickly the world wanted to stop searching? And what if that photo was exactly what it looked like? As the years passed, more evidence, tantalizing yet inconclusive, kept surfacing. One man claimed his father saw a white woman executed on Saipan during the war. Another remembered a strange woman in a village who spoke perfect English and drew maps in the dirt. A fisherman found metal fragments on a beach that matched aircraft alloys from the 1930s. Divers near Howland Island located an underwater shape resembling a Lockheed Electra, only for storms to erase the site before it was confirmed. Piece by piece, the trail leads everywhere and nowhere. Is it all coincidence? Mass hysteria? Or were governments, multiple governments, working to erase the real ending to her story? Because the worst betrayal isn't by time or tide. It's by those who know the truth and choose to keep it locked away. And if that's the case, who benefits from Amelia Earhart remaining a mystery? Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot, she was a symbol, a woman who challenged the sky when few dared. Her disappearance left a vacuum in aviation, yes, but also in hearts across the globe. Girls who once looked up to her posters now stared into the night sky, wondering where their hero had gone. Her family still grieves. Her story is still taught. Her name still lingers on plaques and scholarships, but the truth still hidden. And even now, nearly 90 years later, the questions haven't gone quiet. Who really knows what happened? Was she stranded, captured, or consumed by the ocean? Why do witnesses still whisper her name in far-off islands? What is it about this one woman's story that won't let the world move on? Because sometimes a mystery is more than a cold case. It's a mirror of our refusal to forget. Just when the world was ready to let go, a group of researchers returned to Nikumaroro Island, the place long suspected as Earhart's final refuge. They brought advanced tools, bone-sniffing dogs, and historical data. Their goal? To answer one question once and for all. Did Amelia die here, alone and stranded? This time, they found something different. Fragments of a mirror, pieces of a woman's shoe, part of a compact that predated the island's known residents. And beneath the coral soil, faint signs of human activity, ashes, animal bones, and an improvised camp layout consistent with survival behavior. But here's the twist. No definitive DNA, no initials carved in wood, no photograph, no journal, just artifacts and silence. Could this have been her final place? Or did someone else with similar tools, habits, and heartbreaks try to survive the same island? The evidence whispered, but still didn't scream. After decades of debate, one theory now rises above the rest, not because it's loud, but because it connects all the dots. Amelia crash-landed near Nikumaroro, survived for days or weeks, and died waiting for help that never came. Her signals may have been picked up, then dismissed. Her items may have been scattered by time and tide, and her voice lost to the wind. It's the most heartbreaking theory because it's the most human. She didn't vanish in an instant. She endured. She fought. She waited. Alone. That's what stuns people now. Not aliens, not espionage, not conspiracy. Just the crushing silence of being unheard. But that theory still leaves room for doubt. Because even now, no one can say with certainty where she took her final breath. And that haunting question lingers. What if she was closer to rescue than we ever knew? Amelia Earhart set out to fly around the world, but her greatest journey may have been after her final radio call. She wasn't just lost to the sky. She was etched into history, suspended between legend and truth. And maybe that's why her story still grips us, because it's not just about a missing plane. It's about how a single life can leave a shadow so wide, so permanent, it's still visible across generations. If this story moved you, take a moment and let us know your thoughts below. Was she a victim of a tragic accident, a political pawn, or a survivor who history chose to forget? Whichever theory you believe, one thing remains true. Amelia Earhart never truly disappeared. She lives on, in questions, in echoes, and in the hearts of those still listening. The Amelia Earhart mystery remains one of history's most compelling unsolved disappearances. Whether she crashed near Nikumaroro, was captured by Japanese forces, or vanished without a trace on a secret mission, her story continues to captivate millions. This famous missing person case has spawned countless theories, from government cover-ups to espionage conspiracies. Despite decades of investigation, Amelia Earhart's final message and lost plane have never been definitively found. Her disappearance represents more than just an aviation mystery. It's a testament to how some vanished person's stories transcend time. As new evidence emerges and cold case investigations continue, the legend of this missing aviator grows stronger. What do you think really happened to Amelia Earhart? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real unsolved mysteries and suspenseful disappearance stories that continue to baffle investigators worldwide.